Hey everyone, it's Kong again, this time with a video about the new Rune workshop. So on my last video, I actually had several comments asking me to make a whole separate video on this little temporary mechanic. It's actually very straightforward, so I thought I'd make something really short and quick for you. To access the Rune workshop, it's just up here in your little corner section of your main menu. And then you basically have three things in here. The first thing you want to look at is your runic blessing. This is basically just the rewards you get over the course of the event for spending stamina. This number at the top is just stamina spent throughout the entire event. And this is basically just a way for the event to give you the materials that you need to use in the rune factory. So as you spend stamina, which you're going to be doing naturally by clearing your dailies anyway, you'll get these little items, including this little parchment. There's 300 ore, which you need to make an item. And then these are all materials for infusing, which is building up the enchantment. At the very end, they very kindly give you a couple bonus epic martial spirits for then leveling up the gear that you chose. So we'll take a look, and you'll see where all this stuff is used. So the second thing you're going to want to look at in here is Angelica's section, which it says equipment customization, which doesn't make any sense because this is where you're actually creating a piece of equipment. So this can be any piece of gear, SSR gear, other than accessories and other than any of the battle pass gear that we got over the last two battle passes. So you can't create, you know, any accessories or any of the more recent weapons and, you know, things that came from the whale passes. But by now we have gotten enough kind of free hammers that we probably could have gotten one or two of those packs anyway. Since this is on Kong of Time, you can see there's a bunch of pieces of gear that I haven't gotten yet. So if you want to get a new piece of gear that you don't already have, not a duplicate, you can click this button up here. It'll show only the stuff that you're missing. Kong of Time is going to go ahead and take a crystal stinger. So you also need 300 ore and one of these little parchment plans, which come from the previous section that we already looked at. And then you just click synthesize and Angelica will make you a piece of equipment. Alright, so we've already done all our synthesis for this entire event now, because the runic blessing only gives you one parchment, and I've used it. There's no way to make any more gear. So I got a new crystal stinger, which I didn't have before. Finally, the last section of this event is the arcane infusion, and this is where the enchant customization part comes in. I think the reason a lot of people were asking me to make a video about this is because they thought it was a little bit more in-depth than it actually is. You don't actually have the ability to manipulate or change or improve any enchants that you've already rolled, so it's not a way for Zilong to give us to perfect or customize an already decent roll or to fix a bad roll. Basically all this is rolling a new enchant on a piece of unenchanted gear, something that you haven't enchanted already, using a number of templates. So it's not even random, they just give you a number of templates that you can then build up to a certain preset level. You can't max stuff. So the first thing you want to do is select your equipment. I've already selected Apex Boots, but if you haven't already gone into this menu and chosen something, you can pick a piece of gear that you already have, something that doesn't have an enchant on it. Then on this next page, you choose the actual resonance that you want. For Kong of Time, I believe I'm going to choose Blazing Sun. And then we'll look at the actual templates. So I'll log on to another account after this and show the templates for the other gear types, but this is what the templates look like for accessories, and I'm going to go ahead and spoil it in advance and say that I think accessories are probably the #1 thing where you can get actually decent usable rolls. The survival-oriented roll is not fantastic because it's purely defensive stats, which might be okay for a tank, that's fine. You know, you have your 3 defensive stats for a tank, especially one who might be a converter, who gets double use out of these defensive stats. For most other tanks, like a Landius or a Hilda or a Lightbringer, for example, you are going to want their primary attacking stat, so that's of limited use up here. The int-oriented one, again, this would be fine for like an int DPS who needs crit. For an int tank, it's not the best because the crit isn't going to be great on them. You're going to want another defensive stat. Attack-oriented, you can get, like, not quite capped attack, not quite capped HP, and, like, 2/3 of your crit. This is the one I think is probably the best value, though, because trying to roll max attack and 15% crit is pretty difficult. 8% and 10% is kind of right on the borderline of something that I would keep and not re-roll anyway, and this way you actually get HP as the third stat, which is a pretty good roll, actually. I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. And then the rest of what you're doing on this last page here is using these things that you get from the Runic Blessing that you gradually rack up by spending stamina to increase these individual stats. And you should get enough infusion materials from the event, if you're maxing out the event, to get the 3 stats up to the max of what they showed you on the previous page. So not the max stat for the actual gear piece, but just the, like, soft cap of what this event will give you. So 8% attack, 8% HP, 10% crit, which is a fine accessory. I don't have enough on this account to do any of that, to show you it actually in action, but it's very straightforward. Like, you don't even really have any choices to make here. It's a very linear event. You basically just spend stamina, get the materials, come in here, choose the gear piece you want a half-decent enchant on, and then just make the enchant. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to main Kong now, or one of the other Kongs, and show you the options for the other gear. Alright, here we are over on main, and you can see I've actually been doing my dailies, so I have access to a lot more of these free materials. I'll go ahead and claim those. And then on main Kong, I've loaded up a piece of armor, so you can see what the armor enchants look like. Let's go ahead and just choose Breeze. You can never go wrong with Breeze. And let's take a look at the templates that they offer for armor pieces. So again, we have a defensive-oriented one, which gives up to 12% HP, 12% defense, and then flat MDef when you max everything. Again, I don't think this is great. It's certainly not as good as it looks, because you're getting flat MDef, which is really maybe like 5% MDef. If you're rolling a real pure tank-oriented piece, you're going to want more than 10% on both of these side stats. So that leaves us with the int-oriented and the attack-oriented ones. And these are okay rolls. Like, you're not getting max int or max attack on them, which is kind of unfortunate. And again, you're only getting like 3 to 5% of defense, when if I'm rolling an armor piece, even for an attacking hero, I'm usually going to try to get over 10% for both HP and defense, and then at least 4%, hopefully 5% on the attack roll. So again, these are kind of like half-decent, like decently usable rolls. Although, to be perfectly honest, if I got a roll like this while I was just enchanting normally, it would be at the top of the pile to be re-rolled when I get scrolls and gold later. So the armor is not something that I would recommend necessarily picking unless you just are a newer player or a newer account who just absolutely needs a free baseline roll that you can use and build off of later. So let's go back, and I will show what the roll options on a piece of weaponry looks like. Okay, so once again, a survival-oriented loadout on a weapon I would never recommend. The weapon is the prime slot where you're going to be able to get as much attack as possible. And basically the rule of thumb for most good rolls is if you get below 14% on main stat, keep re-rolling. So even the attack and int-oriented, like the proper templates that we have here, are pretty crap. It's only going to get you up to 12% attack. That's something, honestly, even not looking at the HP, this is something that if I rolled this naturally, I'd be re-rolling it with an SR scroll. So I can't recommend using this Rune Factory event to make a piece of weaponry for yourself. I would say maybe if you need a piece of armor, you know, a piece of armor or a piece of headgear, you know, you'll get yourself a borderline usable piece that you can use as a foundation for your account to build on. Other than that, I would say if your account is anywhere built, then I would go with an accessory. And really, the bottom two are the accessory rolls that I would recommend the most. Getting a decent 8% and 10% spread on your offensive stats with a certainly respectable HP roll for your third stat there. So, again, like I said, I don't really see this event as very confusing or thought-provoking. It's really just kind of a linear thing. You can create one free piece of gear for yourself, whether you want that to be something totally new or something that you already have. On Main Kong, I already have everything that's available through this event, so I'd just be choosing, you know, something that I need another copy of. Maybe a Night Bloom. Well, I'm sitting on a few Night Blooms now. Maybe one of these AoE bows. So yeah, you build yourself a piece of gear there, and then don't feel like you need to then use that gear in the infusion section. You can build yourself a piece of gear, but then use this infusion section to get a roll on a totally other piece of gear. It's not like a 1, 2, 3 step process. Anyway, that's really all there is to say about this event, so let me know in the comments what gear you're making for yourself. I know in my guild already I've heard a lot of those AoE bows. A lot of people missed out on those apparently, so they're using this as a chance to at least lock one down. And let me know what you're choosing for your enchant as well. I think it's fairly clear what I'm going with from the looks of this video so far. To be honest, probably gonna roll another like Blazing Sun Slayer's emblem for Ancient Beckoning on my main account, but that's just because I do silly Ancient Beckoning stuff on this account. So yeah, let me know what you think, and I will catch you in the next one. Happy Langrissing, everyone.